It's time for Fresh Oil with singer-songwriter and pastor Keith Manley, a program designed to minister the gospel of God's grace and to bring fresh oil to the brokenhearted. And now, with today's program, Pastor Keith Manley.
Hello, my friend. Welcome to a brand new week of some fresh oil. I'm your host, Keith Manley, and got a great topic this week. We're going to be talking about spiritual burnout. Going to be talking about what I call soul fatigue. She sat in the church pew with her hands folded neatly, her smile in place, her head nodding politely to the words of the pastor. But inside, something was breaking. Again. No one would have known because she still volunteered, still prayed for others, she still led the Bible study, still posted the inspirational verse every morning on her Facebook account. But her soul was exhausted. It wasn't physical tiredness. It was deeper. Like something in her spirit had worn thin, frayed from too many battles fought in silence. She loved God, but lately she just couldn't feel Him. She believed in the Word, but it no longer stirred her heart. Every song felt hollow, and every prayer felt like it fell to the floor. She wasn't angry, just empty. If you asked her how she was doing, she would always say fine. Because spiritual burnout doesn't always come with a meltdown. It often comes with a slow, quiet drifting, kind of like a boat unanchored, slowly just pulling away from the shore by currents that are too subtle to notice until you're far from land. Friend, this is the weariness that no one talks about. This kind that shows up with a smile but hides a cry for help. It happens to pastors, to parents, to caregivers, to overachievers, and to anyone trying to pour out more than they have. And maybe it's happening to you right now. This message today is for the hidden weary, for the ones who can't find the words, for those who are tired in places that no one can see. You're not alone, friend, and you're not broken beyond repair. There is a shepherd who still leads tired souls beside the still waters. There's a healer who doesn't condemn your exhaustion, but he gently whispers, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Friend, I want you to know that it's no accident you tuned into this program today. I believe God is inviting you to rest, to come into His presence and experience something that will strengthen your soul. There's a hidden battle that we often face with emotional fatigue. You can be in the ministry and still be empty. You can be a leader and still feel lost. You can be surrounded by people and at the same time feel like you're silently drowning. You see, soul fatigue is the kind of weariness that doesn't show up in blood tests. It's not diagnosed by the doctor. It doesn't scream for attention. It whispers. And most of us learn to ignore it. We just keep moving, keep smiling, and keep doing what is expected until something breaks. The exhaustion that we don't admit. It's easy to recognize physical exhaustion. You collapse on the couch, you cancel appointments, and maybe you even sleep in for the day. But soul exhaustion, it's more deceptive. It shows up in really subtle ways. All of a sudden, your prayers become mechanical. You're reading the scripture, it feels like just another task instead of something you once enjoyed. Worship doesn't stir your heart like it once did. And you withdraw emotionally, not because you're mad, but because you're just numb. You wake up dreading another day that looks just like the last one. It's like your soul has been running a marathon, and now you're just going through the motions, one tired step at a time. This brings me to our scripture today as we talk about the prophet Elijah, the prophet who broke down, the prophet who burned out. Even the mighty fall into soul fatigue. One of the clearest examples in the Bible is the prophet Elijah. And in 1 Kings chapter 18, he stood boldly on Mount Carmel, calling down fire from heaven in one of the most dramatic demonstrations of God's power that's ever been recorded. He was fearless. He was filled with faith, and eventually he was victorious. But one chapter later, in 1 Kings 19, the very next chapter, Elijah's a different man. You see, Jezebel threatens his life, and instead of standing strong, Elijah runs. He flees into the wilderness, and he lies under just a broom tree, and he prays to die. He says, "I've had enough, Lord. Take my life." How do you go from calling down fire from heaven to praying for death in just one chapter? Friend, that's how fast burnout can strike. Even heroes get tired. Now you might be thinking today, Keith, what are the reasons behind the burnout? Well, Elijah's fatigue, it didn't come from sin. It came from stress, from fear, from disappointment, and overexertion. He was physically tired, spiritually discouraged, and emotionally depleted. And that's what makes burnout such a hidden battle. We assume that because we're doing good things, we'll be okay. But friend, even good things can drain you if you're not replenished. I remember a time in my early ministry when I was counseling people, and I was even counseling people outside my church because people heard there was free counseling, and oh my goodness, I would go all day long and sometimes into the evening hours, and there came a point where it just burned me out. I could no longer listen to people's problems because I had poured out until I found myself empty. See, friend, burnout is not a failure of faith. It's a failure to rest. You're not alone. If you feel like Elijah, drained, defeated, you're done, know this: God didn't rebuke him for his breakdown. God didn't lecture Elijah. He didn't say, "Hey, toughen up." He didn't say, "You just need to pray more." Instead, God sent an angel with food, water, and rest. He let Elijah sleep. He met him in silence, not in thunder. And that's the heart of God for those who encounter soul fatigue, for those who go through spiritual burnout. That same grace is extended to you, my friend. Have you been feeling spiritually numb or emotionally distant? What signs of soul fatigue have been showing up in your life? In what ways have you been performing for God instead of resting in Him? We're talking today on the subject of soul fatigue. It's a slow fade. See, soul fatigue rarely arrives with fanfare. It doesn't usually hit you like a thunderstorm. It kind of creeps in like a fog. It's the gradual erosion of your passion and the subtle drying up of your joy. The quiet disconnection from the one you once loved so deeply, and now you find it hard to express your love for God. You don't even realize how far you've drifted until you wake up one day and you ask yourself, how did I get here? See, most people don't burn out in a moment. They wear out over months or even years of living under pressure without pause. Did you know, friend, that's why God created the Sabbath day? He created the Sabbath for us to rest because He knew we would go and go and go and never stop working. You keep saying yes to everything. You ignore the warning signs even though you see them. You believe the lie that rest is weakness. You press through the pain because, after all, people are counting on you. If there's pastors that are listening to the program today, man, I know how you feel. There are times when we feel we have to solve the problems for everybody in our congregation. We feel the weight of their financial burdens, of the weakness, of the illness that they're going through. But friend, then it happens. All of a sudden, you stop caring like you used to because you're burned out and you have nothing more to give. You find yourself angry over small things that would never upset you before. You avoid prayer because silence makes you uncomfortable. You're tired, deeply tired, and you can't explain why. That's what I call the slow fade. It's what happens when your output exceeds your input for too long. When you're always pouring out, but you're not filling back up the cup of your heart with God's joy. When you're always present for others, but you're absent from your own heart. You know, the Bible tells us in Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 1, it says, "We must pay the most careful attention, therefore, to what we have heard, so that we do not drift away." See, drifting doesn't feel dangerous until you realize how far the current has pulled you. It starts with small compromises, skipping those resting days. Some of you are listening to this who know me, and you're pointing a finger at me right now because I'm guilty of this a lot. Saying yes out of guilt instead of calling. I'll never forget the day when God gave me a sermon entitled Learning to Say No, because I didn't have it in my vocabulary until one day I realized I needed to learn to say no. Replacing intimacy with busyness. Talking about God more than talking to Him. See, that's what causes us to drift away into this soul fatigue. It's the danger of doing without being. Do you know God made us as human beings, but through religion we become human doings? Jesus once visited the home of two sisters, Mary and Martha. The story is found in Luke 10, begins with verse 38. "Now as they were traveling along, he entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister called Mary, who was seated at the Lord's feet, listening to his word. But Martha was distracted with all her preparations. And she came up to him and said, 'Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the serving alone? Then tell her to help me.' But the Lord answered and said to her, 'Martha, Martha, you're worried and bothered about so many things, but only one thing is necessary. For Mary has chosen the good part, which shall not be taken away from her.'" So I guess the answer to Martha's question was a big no. I'm not going to tell her to leave my feet so she can be busy trying to serve me. You see, Martha was doing all the right things, preparing, serving, being responsible. And here was Mary sitting at the feet of Jesus. Martha wasn't wrong for working, but she let her work replace her worship. And Jesus gently corrected her. He said, "Martha, you're worried and you're upset about many things, but only one thing is necessary." That one thing, my friend, was presence. Being with Jesus and not just working for Him. You see, burnout often begins when we lose that one thing, being in the presence of God. We're talking this week on Fresh Oil on the subject of soul fatigue, spiritual burnout. It happens to all of us, friend, when we get so busy working for God and we miss the opportunity of being in His presence. I believe it's no accident you tuned in to the program today. I believe God brought you to hear this word from Him. And my prayer is, friend, that you listen to His voice. He's calling.
Fresh Oil is pleased to announce the release of Keith's book entitled The Grace Revolution. Available now on Amazon in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle ebook edition. In his book, The Grace Revolution, Pastor Keith Manley shares the gospel of God's grace, giving us a radical shift from performance-based religion to the life-changing power of God's amazing grace. Pastor Keith also released a study guide, helping the reader to explore the grace of God and how life-changing it can be for the reader. To get your copy today, go to Amazon.com and search Keith Manley, The Grace Revolution.
Thanks for joining us today for Fresh Oil with Pastor Keith Manley. Fresh Oil is an outreach of Grace Family Church in Rockford, Illinois, and can be heard each weekday at this same time. You can reach us online at weneedgod.com. Until next time, remember, God's love for you is unconditional, and He He makes His mercies new every morning.